And my talk today comes from Soul Matters. It's a subscription that we have with the UUA, and they give us themes every month, and they give us suggested talks. They give us opening words, closing words, suggested music, and it's a wonderful resource. And thank you, Kathy, for signing us up again for that, and we hope to use it more. I think we're going to have another one in December, possibly. But today's talk is called Buddhist Perspectives on Faith, Trusting the Light Within. It was a sermon given by Reverend Tess Bomberger. Each summer before General Assembly, a gathering of Unitarian Universalists from around the world, there are professional days. These days include a workshop with a major presenter, smaller workshops, schmoozing opportunities, and business meetings for ministers, religious educators, musicians, and church administrators. Back in 2006, the presenter for the big workshop was Sharon Salzberg, a Buddhist meditation teacher who co-founded the Insight Meditation Society and the Barry Center for Buddhist Studies in Barry, Massachusetts. She talked about her book titled Faith, Trusting Your Own Deepest Experiences. Mrs. Salzberg was delightful, wise, wonderful, and very funny. So, of course, I ran right out and bought her book. Though her sense of humor doesn't come through as clearly in the book as it does in a person, it is a gem. I highly recommend it whether your leanings are toward Buddhism or bend in other directions. The sermon draws heavily on both her presentation and her book. Ms. Salzberg starts out by saying that redeeming the word faith is one of the key challenges of our time. For many in the country, faith means what the religious right and the media they own and operate tell us what it means. Anyone whose religious views are to the center or left of that definition might want to chuck the word faith out altogether. However, I prefer Ms. Salzberg's approach. Let us create our own definition and redeem the word for ourselves. The thing that most struck me about her presentation and her book was the idea from Buddhist perspective that faith is a verb rather than a noun. Faith isn't a commodity we possess, Salzberg says. It is an unfolding process of the heart that grows and deepens all the time. We don't have faith, we faith. In her book, Salzberg draws on her own deepest personal experience to show how this process of faithing, trusting the light within, trusting our capacity for love, wisdom, and awareness, can draw us through hard times. Salzberg's story is a sad one. Her father disappeared when she was 4. After her mother died when she was 9, she went to live with grandparents she barely knew, who rarely even mentioned her mother. Her father reappeared in her life, but his mental health problems interfered with his ability to be a real parent to her. In fact, in some ways, she had to play parent to him. As a young adult, her interest in religion led her to India and ultimately to a Buddhist meditation teacher. She even sat under the descendant of the same tree where the Buddha sat when he experienced enlightenment. This proved to be a life-changing event for her. From that point, she began, through daily meditation practice and embracing Buddhist teachings, to build a faith in her own capacity to change her life through love and awareness. In order to redefine the word faith, Salzberg looks at the world in Pali, which is the language of the original Buddhist text. The Pali word translated as faith, confidence, or trust is sada, which literally means to place the heart upon. She says that sada is the willingness to take the first step on a new journey. Even when you don't know the destination, the real point is the setting forth. The first step in the journey of faithing, according to Buddhism, is recognizing that everything within us and around us is always moving onward to something else. Using our loving awareness, we draw near the truth of the present moment, even as it changes, pulling us onward to the next moment. One basic Buddhist belief is that suffering is a part of life. It can seem like this big, clunky thing that sits on us and never changes, and so will never go away. Seeing suffering in this way can lead to despair, as it nearly did for Mrs. Salzberg, when later in life she recovered the memory of the night her mother died. By practicing loving awareness of the present moment through regular meditation, she was able to see that her suffering contained many emotional components that were always changing. She says this is like what a musicologist would call this unpacking the chord, finding the notes that make up the music of her grief. It helped her to recognize that her suffering was made up of these evolving components of anger, fear, and pain. This helped her see that her suffering was not some big, unchanging, horrendous thing, but something that was already changing. She began to see gaps with her suffering that gave her hope that it would diminish. Not only that, she began to see that she had the ability to change the repeating patterns of suffering in her life. Salzberg says this definition of faith is not smarmy. It does not say that events around us will be all right, because we can't know how events will unfold. The final destination is not clear most of the time. This type of faith can also, she writes, allow us to recognize and trust the helping hands stretched toward us. It enables us to aspire to a better life than we have inherited. Ms. Salzberg decided as a young adult to place her heart upon the teachings of Buddha. From there, she journeyed through the 3 stages of faith laid out in the Buddhist tradition. The first stage of faithing in Buddhism is called bright faith and is akin to falling in love. She says it's like we've lived our lives feeling constrained when suddenly the door swings open and the sense of self we have always carried around with us no longer imprisons us. It is dazzling. She describes bright faith as a state of love-filled delights and eager joy at the prospect of actualizing them. Bright faith goes beyond claiming those possibilities to immersing yourself in them, then beginning to act on your potential. Salzberg is quick to distinguish bright from blind faith. Both tend to be inspired by something or someone outside of ourselves. Unlike blind faith, which is an unquestioning devotion to a teacher or teaching, bright faith is the beginning of a journey that must include a great deal of questioning. Bright faith rejects what she calls a guru mentality, an unwillingness to question. Bright faith, unlike blind faith, does not ask us to check our brains at the door, a favorite saying among Unitarian Universalists. But it does require us to surrender cynicism and apathy and to believe in and to begin working for change. Its energy pushes us forward in a journey of awareness, wisdom, and compassion. The Buddhist tradition teaches that after bright faith, we enter into verifying faith. On the journey, we must learn to base our faith on our own experience, with eyes wide open, as Salzberg puts us. This forces us to challenge, to lose, and ultimately to deepen our faith. Our faith journey can end after bright faith if we're not willing to go deeper by refining our bright faith through some very hard work. We need to transform inspiration into effort, she says, or our faith will remain immature. We need to test anything we're told against our own experience of the truth. Like the next stage of falling in love, we need to examine that upon which we have placed our heart very closely. Placing one's heart is a powerful thing, and to respect that power, we need to be intent and aware of what we're doing. Now, in some traditions, doubting or questioning one's faith is seen as a problem or a failing. In fact, counseling the doubtful is included in one tradition's list of the spiritual acts of mercy. However, in Buddhism, as in our own tradition, faith grows as we question what we're told, as we put teachings into practice in our lives and look at the results. Salzberg quotes the Buddha himself, who said, "Don't believe anything just because I have said it. Don't believe anything just because an elder or someone you respect has said it. Put it into practice. See for yourself if it is true. If you find that it leads to a kind of wisdom that is like looking at a wall, then the wall breaks open and you see in a more unbounded way, then you can trust it." One of the things that most appealed to me about our faith, about Unitarian Universalism when I first discovered it, was that my questions and doubts were welcomed and encouraged. We have a bright faith experience, too. People who first discover our faith have that brightness to them. Salzberg warns that if we fail to question our faith, that on which we place our hearts, bright faith can become blind faith, dogmatic, fundamentalist. So the phase of verifying faith is crucial in our development. To make the most of the next stage, verifying faith, Salzberg says that we need to practice skillful doubt. Skillful doubt is a sincere, critical questioning combined with deep trust in our own right and ability to discern the truth. Skillful doubt requires being close enough to care about an issue and yet open enough to let the questioning come alive. It asks us to trust our faith enough to question it skillfully. Buddhism teaches that there is another type of doubt that can stop the faith journey dead in its tracks. This is what they call unskillful doubt or walk-away doubt. Unskillful doubt is simply cynicism, a stance that allows us to feel smug and unthreatened without really becoming involved. It is doubt without due investigation of the object of the doubt or of the faith. Salzberg suggests some skillful doubt questions, but don't take her word for it. They include asking about each belief. Can it transform my mind? Can it help shape my pain into wisdom and love? Does my experience match the belief system? If not, then let it go. If so, then explore it more deeply. Faithing then becomes an open, active state of wonder, which inspires us to explore. As we immerse ourselves in the stage of verifying faith, Buddhism teaches we gradually come to the third stage, the stage of abiding or unwavering faith in our deepest experience. In abiding faith, we have tested something so deeply we are living it. Abiding faith does not depend on borrowed concepts. Rather, it is the magnetic force of a bone-deep, lived understanding, one that draws us to realize our ideals, walk our talk, and act in accordance with what we know to be true. In abiding faith, we place our hearts upon what Paul Tillich calls ultimate concern, that glue that holds together the pieces of our experience. Each of us may have a different ultimate concern. For some, it may be justice. For others, it may be compassion. For some, ultimate concern might be a faith in a divine power. For others, it might be faith in the laws of nature. For Buddhists, the ultimate concern is our Buddha nature, the capacity to live our lives in love, compassion, and awareness, a capacity that nothing can destroy. As we place our hearts upon our ultimate concern, as we faith our lives around that commitment, we begin to let go of the destination and trust ourselves in the journey. Salzberg quotes Alan Watts, who says, "Belief clings, faith lets go." In addition to teaching that life within and around us is always changing, Buddhism teaches that everything is deeply connected. Buddhists believe that we have all died and been reborn countless times. So at some point we have been each other's mothers, fathers, children, students, teachers, friends, lovers, and enemies. We have all loved and hurt one another. We have all shared laughter and tears. We've already reminded one another to breathe, to faith. For me, we can see the same deep sense of personal connection in our faith community. Whether or not we believe in this kind of death and rebirth, over time here in this congregation, we have acted all sorts of roles. We have given, we have received, we have wondered with the wonder of childhood, we have advised with wisdom of old age. Over time spent in loving faith community, the experiences we share build those bonds that comfort and sustain us. Mrs. Salzberg talks about this power of faith community in relation to a time when she nearly fell into despair, which she sees quite rightly as the opposite of faith. In her time of deepest despair, it was the faith of others that helped pull her through. It was not only their faith in the process that helped, but also their belief in her and their loving support of her. She was able to use the tools she learned to move through her time of suffering. This is a definition of counseling the doubtful that I can support. She relates an experience of walking a labyrinth during that period of her life. At times, she found herself close to the center, the goal, but then the path would lead her away again, out towards the edge. Yet all the time, whether close to the goal or far away on the labyrinth path, she was always moving toward the center. This is a comforting thought, that always as we move, even if we feel our path is taking us to the outer edges, even when we cannot see it, each step is actually taking us closer to the center, to the goal. With each step we faith, placing our hearts upon that ideal and trusting in our deepest experience and the helping hands around us to take us where we need to be. The understanding of faith is one that I can embrace. It walks the middle road between cynicism and unquestioning acceptance. It is the path of skillful doubt that leads us to faith in an abiding way. The definition of faith says we should cherish our doubts because done skillfully, doubting can take us to deeper faithing. Practicing skillful doubt can take us into an abiding sense of trust in ourselves and in one another as we faith together. So may it be. Namaste. And as I said, this was a sermon given by Tess Bomberg, and I chose this because it resonated with me, and hopefully it will resonate with some of you.